Hello and welcome to the show. I am here on Forza 6 with an Audi S1 that is going to tackle the Autocross course. Relatively highly requested car, and it certainly has potential. It is along very similar lines of the Focus RS. Small four-wheel drive hatchback. The question is, will it handle as well as the Focus RS? After all, the Focus is second place on our table, only beaten by the mighty Lamborghini. So it's quite a lot of an ask for this S1. Of course, four-wheel drive is great and everything, provided we don't have understeer, and that was where the Focus was so good. The Audi starts off in C-Class. We've got a little bit more with PI to play around with the car than we did from the Focus when it started off, but of course it's not as good a car to begin with. Race tyres will be going on, and maximum tyre widths, 265 on the front. It's not too shabby, and I'm going to guess we're going to get 265 on the rear as well. Yeah, 265s all round, pretty good. Yeah, pretty decent tyre widths. I would always like bigger, but for a four-wheel drive car, certainly for a small hatchback such as this one, that is about what I would expect to see. Aero parts, yep, we will be getting some of these. Anything that can help give us grip, well, that's drops a huge amount of PI off the vehicle. I mean, that's good for me, because the only downside of having the rear wing, aside from being fractionally heavier, the bigger downsides are the drag. It reduces its top speed. That's irrelevant. When it comes to autocross, it's absolutely irrelevant, so I'm getting almost 10 PI for free there. So I will take that. I'm probably not going to swap the engines. I'm just curious as to what we can. We can put the V6, relatively sensible one, or we can put the V8 racing engine, not the NASCAR one, but the other V8 racing one. It's going to be far too high a PI for that. I suspect we're not going to get a massive amount of horsepower in this vehicle. Often, the all-wheel drive cars suffer a little bit of a penalty. They tend to get higher PI. Things like the Subaru SVX, for example, was quite heavy and relatively low down on power, and yeah, it struggled. The Focus RS was kind of the exception, but they can sometimes be a little penalised with the PI system. So when it comes to autocross, anyway, weight reduction is very much a must in this. £2,400, pretty good. It's not too heavy. Admittedly, things like this roll cage are going to increase the weight slightly, but yeah, I'm hoping with like the exhaust and so on, we can get the weight down to a sensible level. You know, sure, this is light for a normal car, but when it comes to autocross, you do want lightness most definitely. Now we're going to, there we go, good old exhaust. Get to the power department. As you can see, the fact that we're up into A-Class already with 253 horsepower, admittedly got decent torque, it does suggest to me that we might be struggling a tad with the kind of power-to-weight ratio. Is unlikely to be amazing in this vehicle. Now, do we go for an upgraded turbo? Risk increasing the turbo lag, which is not what we want at all in this car particularly. I think we're going to stick with doing other parts until we kind of don't have a choice, basically. It's not going to be the very least powerful car we've had, but equally it's going to be nowhere near the power levels that we have seen from some vehicles. Now, what are we going to go for? Oh, bugger, that's going to be like 1, 2, or a couple too many. Don't really want to go intercooler or oil and cooling. They increase the weight too much for it to be really worth it massively to me. I think what we're going to do is 336, but 400 foot-pounds of torque is good going. I'm liking the torque from this car. And then the rest of the PI we can probably make up in and around here. So we'll go with a drive line, that's what we want. We'll put a diff in as well. Now, gearbox, I tend to avoid upgrading the gearbox. Most of the time, in fact, even with some of the 4 and 3 speeds we've been running, the gearbox doesn't really make very much of a difference, but increases the PI massively. So I've tended to avoid that as best I can. It looks like we're going to have to go for a flywheel and probably a clutch. Let's see if we can do the balancing act. Oh, the fun of these balancing acts. Please only be 1 PI, thank God for that. There we go. That'll do for me. £2,451. We don't have a huge amount of power, but torque figures are good. Four-wheel drive means we'll be able to deploy all of the power at once. The big question is, will the Audi be good enough handling? Of course, I have brought the Audi to the Hockenheim circuit, where it will get 3 runs through the autocross course in an attempt to beat the mighty Lamborghini Miura. Our leader has a time of 2:03.3, which is a ridiculously fast time around this course. It is a long way ahead of the rest of the field, and I doubt the Audi I doubt much is really going to be able to compete with the Miura. However, what will probably be more interesting is how does the Audi fare against the Focus? Second place, Focus RS 2:04.9. Can the S1 even get remotely near that? That is still an incredibly quick time. Until the Miura came along, that was, a very, very fast time. So, I don't know. I'm not sure how the Audi is going to drive. If we don't have terrible understeer, then we could be looking at another pretty quick car around here. If we do have terrible understeer, well, we may struggle with the vehicle. My perhaps bigger concerns for this car are that it may struggle with acceleration. I'm not sure just how fast accelerating this car is going to be. It's not looking too bad at the moment. Oh, the back end is a little bit lively. Back end is a lot livelier on here than it was in the Focus. That much is for sure. Actually quite rare to see four-wheel drive cars moving about like that on this kind of opening section. Yes, it has got colder tyres. They're not freezing cold tyres, not like the front-wheel drive cars have. Oh, okay, we can't do that. I can't carry that speed through that section. I had to bail out of that one. We are probably going to be flat out. It still moves around quite a lot. I'm surprised, actually. I'm very surprised just how much the back of the S1 is wanting to move around. Let's get it turned through these. It's still wanting to wiggle. It's not as bad as the BMW, no, but it is still quite happy to wiggle its bum around as we go through these gates. Traction is not an issue, it's just these change of directions that can potentially upset the car. I don't think I wanted to put it up into fifth through there whatsoever. Braking is also not quite as good as I would have liked. Well, I've certainly learnt a few things through the course of this run. Yeah, we have made a couple of mistakes. I expect we're going to be fairly good through the hairpin. Yeah, it's not a bad car per se. That was poor driving by me. Yes, it's not a bad car per se. It is certainly not. It's not. I don't think going to be challenging anywhere near the Focus, to be honest. It's just not got the composure. I'm not sure it has the acceleration either to really mix it up with the Ford as we weave our way through this final section, run towards the line. Yeah, there were 4 gates hit in that, I believe, so 10 seconds worth of time penalties and a couple of dodgy moments. It's a start. That's, I think, the best way of putting it. So, on to the second run for the Audi. Got to cut out some of the mistakes and not quite ask as much of the vehicle because it's not quite going to be able to change direction in the same way that some of the other vehicles have. Very short gear ratios in this car, very short gear ratios from standard. Not necessarily a bad thing. It's not like we have problem with wheel spin in here. At times it feels like this is quite front-wheel drive bias in the power delivery through a couple of certainly these early gates. Put your foot down and it does feel quite a lot like a front-wheel drive car. Things have gone very badly wrong this time out. That's the first time I've had a car twitch on me in this entire series. That is the first time I've had a big twitch from a vehicle. That back end is not planted, and when it lets go, well, big style it. Yeah, we've got to really slow it down through there. It is not a happy car with some of these changes of direction. Now, we are going to be flat out down here. It's not massively quick, though. I did brake a tad early down there. Could probably do 114 miles an hour. When we're seeing cars in the realm of 120, most of the fast cars recently have been up in 120 miles an hour. Yes, we are already talking 6 miles an hour, but that's a very short straight, so kind of get the idea of the differences in acceleration between some of these vehicles. Yeah, that was a big twitch early on. I've got to really watch out for that. I don't think I can attack that opening fast gate with as much vigour as I have with a lot of cars. Even the M3's scary oversteery stuff is more predictable than this car suddenly snapping on you and letting go. Right, oh, run it down into the hairpin. I broke far too late. We're not going to make that corner. Okay, brake earlier for that section. Don't spin the car as we go through that first high-speed gate. Oh, going to run wide. Yeah, we do not have the grip to really push the car. It is quite peculiar. I think it must have quite a high front power bias. It does feel like a high-powered front-wheel drive car in some sections, which is not necessarily a good thing. Where the Focus was incredibly predictable and balanced, this was not. Amusingly, I hit the same number of gates and I was only 2 seconds slower, despite spinning and pointing the wrong way at some point in that course. Right, we've learnt more things not to do. Let's see if we can do the correct things on this final run. So, if I can not be pointing backwards at any point during this run, I will be quite pleased, quite grateful to be honest. Make no silly mistakes with the Audi. Try and keep it out of the barrels, and it might set a good time. I'm not really quite sure, having had both of my runs relatively scrappy, trying to get a hang of this car. I'm not quite sure what to be expecting. It's not going to be god-awfully slow, no, but it's not likely to really scare the top of the table. That back end is so wiggly through that section. It just doesn't have the grip to carry any speed through that corner. So that was by far the biggest moment I've had off across the grass down there, trying to keep it all together here. Now make sure we get it slowed down there. We just can't. We're 10 miles an hour slow than we've seen from a few of the vehicles. Now we are flat out up there. We are, but still the back end is wanting to go round on the car, and then we struggle with understeer through these next couple of corners. Oh, and then we get all sorts of steer going on. We get understeer followed by oversteer and some countersteer and occasionally backward steer, which is never a good thing. Still, we're fighting the car on its way through these gates. We can get some nice exits out of the corners if everything is going well. That transition there, I think we're probably not going fast enough to actually get myself into trouble, get the car slowed down, just focus on being neat and tidy through that section. We still get a little bit of wiggling going on from the vehicle. Now, down towards the hairpin. The brakes are not quite as impressive as I had hoped, but we do get it stopped, and it's relatively nicely around the hairpin. We're not going to be flat out on the way up the hill. It is just not going to have the front end grip to make that stick, and a little bit of a slide coming towards this last slalom towards the finish line. Get it slowed down, get it turned in. Oh god, we're fighting the Audi all the way to the line. 208.3 from the car. It is quite a handful. I think it's the best way to describe this vehicle. It's not got the composure of the Focus. It's nowhere near the Focus RS levels. It's nowhere near the Jeep Grand Wagoneer levels of 400 XP. God damn it. It's just, yeah, there is some understeer from the front when you're trying to carry speed, and then you get sudden snappy oversteer, and if you try and correct it and get it wrong, sim steering will spin you around and you will be pointing backwards. I could have had a big roll there, to be honest, I've been close enough to the grass, but yeah, there's not the grip. There's nowhere near the composure in this car. It's not too bad of a vehicle. If you don't make any silly mistakes, you can get it relatively well. The acceleration isn't amazing. At times it feels a bit like a front-wheel drive car. It's just not. It's not in the same class as the Focus RS or quite a few of the other four-wheel drive cars that have gone. Its time, though, well, it goes into 37th place. It is towards the lower half of the table. It does manage to beat the Honda NSX, the GMC Cyclone, and the Subaru SVX, and the Bone Shaker as well, about a second quicker than the Bone Shaker. However, it is beaten by the Holden, the Porsche Cayman, Aston Martin V8 Vantage, Mustang GT, and a whole slew of other very, very quick cars. It's, yeah, you know, we're talking 3.5 seconds down on the Focus RS. Similar premise to the Ford, but it's nowhere near as nice. In the Audi, just, yeah, not got anywhere near enough grip in pretty much any parts of the car. But there we go. That is it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.